Look Bout Yourself with Marcia and Musufing.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. And welcome back to Look Bout Yourself. And we just want to thank you, everybody who has watched any of the past episodes of Look Bout Yourself. And we have had commentary.
We have indeed, yeah. We've had some really good feedback, and that this is something that you value, and really hoping that we would continue and do more. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry we've been away. Life.
Absolutely, life happens. Yeah, just as it. What can I say?
You've moved.
I have moved. Yes.
Marcia's moved house.
Yeah.
I have. I was away for a while. I think one of the last topics we talked about was caring for aging parents. So I was in Jamaica, looking after mum. Even though she's well, she's healthy, she's beautiful. But 80 is 80. So we, as part of our role, we have to take care of our precious ones.
How is she?
She's doing so well.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Your mum's amazing.
Marcia spoke to her. It was so nice.
It was really, really lovely.
Yeah.
I can't even believe she's that old, but anyway.
Yeah.
She was great.
And your mum celebrated?
She celebrated her 80th as well, the back end of last year. And I celebrated a significant birthday as well. And I don't mind sharing.
Yes.
I'm 60.
She's 60.
Yeah.
We're in good. Anyway, so Marcia, what are we going to be exploring over the next few?
One of the things that I think is really, really important and pertinent, I think, to us particularly as women, it's the whole thing around relationships. And I'm talking about the intimate relationship and what are the foundations of that? What are the foundations
of how we navigated and continue to navigate intimate partner relationships?
Absolutely. And we hope that helps our young sisters, our young daughters coming up.
And it's not an easy thing to talk about, is it?
No, it's not.
Are you ready? You're sure you want to do this? You want to do this? So what would you say? Shall we share a little bit about our foundation stones in terms of how we began to understand or not understand relationships?
Absolutely, I think that's really important. I think I would start. My starting point, I think, was watching my own parents and their relationship and how that sort of informed how I would be as an adult in relationships.
Yes.
And it wasn't necessarily seeing my mum and dad sort of being romantic. It wasn't even that even. It was just, how they interacted with each other. I mean, the things that I learned was the man, my dad, I only ever saw my dad, work. For example, he came home and looked after the family, mum, so it's those gender roles then, yeah.
And we're talking about 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yes, yeah. And so that's kind of what I saw. My dad went out and worked really hard. My mum, looked after us and the home. I never really, what I would say, my dad worked really hard. He was there, but I don't necessarily think he was there emotionally for me.
Okay.
I think because it actually influenced how I parented my own children. So, and it's it's only now, I kind of look back and think, oh my gosh, I'm more like my parents than I'd care to admit, but yeah, I think that whole, you worked really hard, family was, for me, it was like family was everything. You didn't chat out your business. You like you said, the focus was, you go to school. My parents it was a case of work hard, go to school, get your education, and go get one job, one good career. And it was expected that you went to school, got all your O levels and your A levels or whatever it was at the time, and get a good job.
Get a good job.
Yeah.
I took you away from what you were saying. You said your dad was there physically.
Yeah. So I think when we're talking about foundations of relationships, in the intimate relationship, that's what I think that was what I didn't understand it. You asked me if I had words for that, and I don't think I did at the time. And it's only now I can, processing and just the work that I do, that I realise now that was what that was.
Yeah.
So there was a disconnect between me and my dad.
Right.
That wasn't.
Did you ever see affectionate, intimate moment
between my mum and dad?
Appropriate intimate moments between your parents?
No.
A touch?
No.
A pat on the bum? A kiss?
No, I never saw any of that. However, there was one occasion when they were playing the music in the house, and the two of them were bopping. We were like howling. We were like behind the sofa killing it. Saying, Mummy and Daddy. But I think that was the only time that I can remember ever seeing them do things together. Everything felt like it was hard for them.
Yeah.
It was just, we're just pushing on through. We're going to make the money to, make sure
the picnic them.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because it would be so amazing to speak to them now. I know your dad has passed, and ask them what their relationship was like to them.
Yeah. That would be really interesting. I might ask my mum.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Maybe.
Ooh. That's really interesting, because we are conditioned around how you're supposed to have relationships and what they're supposed to look like, etc. I grew up in a household, let me say, how can I say, assorted daddies.
Right.
So, group of siblings, mum, she didn't work, she walked.
Yeah.
We lived in Birmingham. She worked in a factory. We moved up to Leeds eventually but babies, dads that came, and each dad was supposed to be the dad that was going to stay, and they weren't.
Yeah.
So my mum had children, no husband, and so I grew up completely confused. And actually, relationships just felt fraught because the dads come. My dad didn't stay. My sister's dad didn't stay. Siblings that were in Jamaica, different situations.
Yeah.
So it was very confusing, but relationships felt fraught.
Right.
The reason why we came to Leeds was because we were running from one of the dads.
Right.
My mum was, going through a violent, abusive situation. So we came to Leeds in a traumatic situation.
Right.
And so my experience, saying it aloud, when we continue talking, more things will make sense. So for me, you say absence, I say absence of understanding, and chaos for my experience, chaos. And my mum always ending up with the belly and the baby, and now the father gone.
Right.
And I think those threads in our families are historical.
Yeah.
That go way back.
Yeah.
Not to totally elaborate, but there are reasons. And so I grew up quite confused about what relationships were. I never shared with children at school that I didn't have a dad. At one point we had a stepdad, He was horrible. And I had to lie if family and friends saw him, friends from school, because I didn't want to have to explain.
Yeah.
About the Holy Father them, and because my mum came here, she was alone.
You're right.
And she met somebody, and she thought. So it was very difficult to navigate.
Right.
So that was my chaotic, like walk through a minefield.
Oh gosh.
It was chaotic. Yeah. And I my heart to a certain degree went out to my mum, but maybe I didn't fully have the language.
Yeah.
So how... I think I also thought that families that had a mum and a dad that were married, they were like, woo!
Yeah.
Perfection. Because that's the standard that everybody's supposed to have.
Right.
I didn't understand that if mum and dad are married, then the families are fine.
Yeah.
There's no problems.
Wow. And and that's so far from reality. I mean, to be fair, with my mum and dad, they had their moments. It was, there were times when it was fraught, but I think the experience of them being together, I learnt different things. So, for example, I remember with one of my exes, and I remember it was one Christmas when I used to be into Christmas and putting the lights on the Christmas tree, and I actually had some lights, and I remember saying to him, can you put the lights on the Christmas tree? And I remember the wires, remember the brown and the blue or the black or whatever it was, when we used to manually have to put the fuse in and all of that. And he said he didn't know because the wires looked the same on this thing. And I remember being really, really shocked. What do you mean you don't know what to do? Because for me, that's what I saw at home. My dad did those things. So I assumed that every man...
He mended things, he fixed things, he repaired things, he sorted things out.
Yeah. And so I thought that's what all men did. It was a shocker for me when this man said he didn't know how to put this thing on. And I ended up doing it myself.
Right.
And so, I mean, I actually learned skills myself just through watching how my dad did things, in terms of repairing and doing. And because I was, I ended up being a single parent myself, I did those things.
Yeah.
But I think my the ideal for me, you're saying that, a couple, couple that are married, children, everything's perfect. For me, it was like the man just knows how to do everything. Do you know what I mean?
Because your dad did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Idris Elba, can do everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things aren't as straightforward. So when we look at relationships now, you can kind of see where we're gonna go next. That's really interesting to hear. My mum was our Bob the Builder. So she repaired and she fixed. She would go to classes after work, woodwork, and so she was invincible in that sense.
Right.
But sometimes, now I wonder, how did she do it? How did she navigate that with all of them picnic there? She look after, and how she looked after herself within that. But at the time, I think the functionality of life was the thing for both of us. That seems to have just taken over the process. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash up yourself, you put on your uniform, whether it's to go to school, whether it's to go to work. It's very methodical, is that the word?
Very, yes. I was going to say very methodical, very linear, very straight.
So where do emotions go? What happened to our emotions? And even children now, but we're talking about our experience as children growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s. What happened to our emotions? Did we even know that they needed protecting or they needed acknowledging?
We didn't know any of that stuff. I think those emotions got dumbed down. Yeah, they became numb, or it's suppressed to the point where you don't even know that you're meant to feel that.
Yeah.
Because we weren't taught to be in touch with those emotions or feelings. We weren't taught to do any of that.
No.
And actually, you never really saw our parents be in touch with their emotions, did you?
Yeah.
We didn't see it. So whether we felt anything or not, it was like, well, I'm not supposed to feel that.
It just
Push
didn't
it
have a
down.
place.
Yeah.
Hugs, kisses, assurances from parents.
Lots from my mum. I think from my mum. Not from my dad. And it's not because, I realised later on that it wasn't because he didn't love us. But I'll speak for myself because it might be a different experience.
For a different sibling.
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't, I know now that it wasn't because he didn't love me, but he just did not, he wasn't available. And I would go so far as to say for all of us, but I will speak for myself. And I remember there was an occasion where I was in the living room and we're all doing stuff, and he was sat in the sofa, and you could walk behind the back of the sofa, and I desperately just wanted to fling my arms around him. He's reading his paper, and I remember thinking, I wonder what he'll do if I did. And I did. So I put my hands round, over the sofa and round his neck, and he just touched my hand like that.
Oh.
Just that. He didn't do anything else.
But he didn't push you away.
No, he didn't.
In his way. That's what he knew how to do.
Yeah.
Because I do hear a lot of parents say, people say, my parents never told me that they loved me. But that's a form of what he could give. We understand that now.
Yeah.
I remember asking my mum once if she loved us. And she said, she talked about, I think it was a Christmas period. And she said something like, well, she pointed out the things that she did.
Right.
I remember when I was really little, she'd come home from work and she'd be eating her food. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted something from her plate. It had nothing to do with whether I was hungry or not.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how tired she was, she would always cut a piece of dumpling or a piece of yam and she'd give it to me. And that, to me, I understand, is a show of "I love you."
Yeah.
She didn't say the words, but she showed us.
Indeed, yeah.
So, foundation stones of understanding relationships in a series that we're going to be doing, a series of these. So yeah, Marcia.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing, because when we understand the foundations, that actually does really inform where we go from here. We're going to be sharing over the next few episodes just our journey, how we've navigated, but we have to start at the foundation and then go through
Absolutely
how we have done that.
Yeah.
And where we're at now.
And it's good for us, but we hope that it also helps you on your journey in understanding, especially young people now who may be thinking, where did the threads of some of the patterns in our families come
Absolutely.
from?
Yeah.
So we hope that this has been helpful, and tune into the next episode of Look Bout Yourself.
Look Bout Yourself with Marcia and Musufing.